This is a review of fractions. We are going to review some of the vocabulary that is going to be used in this fraction unit, and we're going to review some things that you've learned until this school year that you're going to need to know how to do in order to continue on with what we need to know on how to solve mathematical problems involving fractions. So let's begin with some of the vocabulary we'll be using in the fraction unit. First are the equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are where the numerator and denominator may be a different number, but they're exactly the same amount. So if I were to shade in an object and show 2/3 of it, and shade in the same size object and showed 4/6, they would be the same exact amount. A one fraction is where the numerator and the denominator are exactly the same number. That's the same as saying 7 divided by 7, which is 1. All numerators and denominators that have the same number will equal 1. So that is a one fraction. Lowest terms is where we take the numerator and denominator of a fraction and divide by a one fraction to get the smallest possible numbers in the numerator and denominator where they can no longer be divided. An improper fraction is when we have the numerator greater than the denominator. Reciprocals is when you take a fraction and flip it over or basically turn it upside down. A mixed number is a whole number and a fraction together. A proper fraction is just how we look at a fraction where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. A division expression is when you have a dividend divided by a divisor, but you do not have the quotient because this is an expression, it's not an equation, so it does not have an equal sign or the equivalent amount after it. Benchmark fractions are 0, 1/2, and 1, and we'll refer to these when we are doing rounding of fractions. Now let's do a really quick review of multiples. Remember, multiples are when we multiply a number by a whole number, and we basically know that this is skip counting, and our goal is to learn what our least common multiple is between two or more numbers. So for 4, let's find what the least common multiple is between 4 and 5. So what we need to do is write out the first 5 or 6 multiples of each number. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, and then basically what we're doing is adding 4 each time, which is just basically skip counting. 5 is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And then we look to see which is the least common multiple, the number that they both share, that's the least. And in this case, 20 is our least multiple for 4 and 5. So our least common multiple, or LCM, is 20. The factors are numbers that you can multiply together to get another number. So let's write all the factors of 27. What numbers multiply together to make 27? I know 1 and 27 do. I know 3 and 9 do. But I don't know of any others because there aren't any. Now the factors of 18 are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. And we usually write these in numerical order. Now the goal here is to find our greatest common factor, and the greatest common factor is the factor that both of them share that is the greatest. And in this case it looks to be like 9 is the greatest factor they both share. So our greatest common factor of 27 and 18 is 9. Now, equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions, we talked real quick when we were doing the vocabulary, that these are fractions that have the same value. So basically we can either multiply by a one fraction to get its equivalent fraction, or we can divide by a one fraction to get its equivalent fraction. For instance, 1/3 times the one fraction 2/2 is 2/6. 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. Then I took 2/6 and I multiplied by the 1 fraction 2/2 again, and that's 2 times 2, which is 4, and 6 times 2, which is 12. So 2/6 times 2/2 is 4/12. And in this case, 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6, which is equivalent to 4/12. 30, 40 seconds, I decided I'm going to divide by the 1 fraction 6/6, and when I did that, I got 30 divided by 6 is 5, and 42 divided by 6 is 7. 30, 40 seconds is equivalent to 5/7. Now let's try a couple here. 7/8 can be, I'm going to take an equivalent fraction. I think I'll do the 1 fraction 4/4. So 7 times 4 is 28, and 8 times 4 is 32. So 7/8 is equivalent to 28/30 seconds. Now, here I think I'm going to divide by the equivalent fraction 6/6. So 36 divided by 6 is 6, and 48 divided by 6 is 8. So 36/48 is equivalent to 6/8. Now, one of the things that you should be able to do now is not need to show the multiplying 1 fraction or the dividing 1 fraction, and just basically do it mentally in your head. So for 3/11, I think I'm going to do 3/11 by the 1 fraction 2/2. So 3/11 equivalent fraction, if I use the 2/2 1 fraction, I would get 3 times 2 is 6, and 11 times 2 is 22. So 3/11 is equivalent to 6/20 seconds. I also know that I could do 3/11 times 4/4. So if I did that, 3 times 4 is 12, and 11 times 4 is 44. So 3/11 is equivalent to 6/20 seconds, which is equivalent to 12/44. And I can keep writing all of these equivalent fractions forever. 18/81, I think I'm going to divide by the 1 fraction 9/9. So 18 divided by 9 is 2, and 81 divided by 9 is 9. So 18/81 is equivalent to 2/9. Now, taking how we make equivalent fractions by dividing by 1 fraction, we would use that to reduce fractions to lowest terms. Now, reducing fractions to lowest terms is the same as simplifying it, which we consider making it simple, the smallest answer, meaning that both the numerator and the denominator are as small as they can get without being divisible by any other 1 fraction except 1/1. Lowest terms is a fraction in its lowest terms when the greatest common factor is 1. Our greatest common factor, remember, the largest whole number that divides exactly into the numerator and the denominator. So let's think of, we've got here 9/12. Now, let's think of the highest 1 fraction that we can get where we can get 9/12 down to its lowest terms. So I'm looking at 9 and 12, and I know they can both be divisible by 3. So I'm going to divide 9 by 3 to get 3, and then I'm going to divide 12 by 3 to get 4. Can I think of any other factors that, or a 1 fraction in which both 3 and 4 can be divisible by? No, only 1/1. So that means 3/4 is simplified. It's in lowest terms. It cannot go any further down. Now 15/30. 15 and 30 can both be divisible by 2. No, 15 can't be divisible by 2. Let's see. 15 and 30 can both be divisible by 3. Let's try that. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 30 divided by 3 is 10. Oh, here, look at this. 5/10. This is not lowest terms because I know that both 5 and 10 can still be divisible by the 1 fraction 5/5. So I need to keep going until I get this down to the lowest terms. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now, 1/2. Can 1 and 2 be divided by a 1 fraction? No, only 1/1. So this means that 15/30 has been reduced to 1/2. That's its lowest terms. Looking at 24/48, I say to myself, what number can both 24 and 48 be divisible by? Oh, they can both be divisible by 12. But is there another factor that may be greater that they can both be divisible by? Oh, let's see, 24. They can both be divisible by 24. 24 divided by 24 is 1, and 48 divided by 24 is 2. So we now have 24/48 reduced to lowest terms at 1/2.